I need you to think about something with me. On Friday night, February 27th, 2026, while gala guests in tuxedos and gowns were sipping cocktails by the pool at Mar-a-Lago, the CIA director, the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of Defense were quietly slipping in through a side entrance. Nobody at the party knew. They set up a map of the Middle East behind black curtains on the other side of the estate. That same Friday, millions of Americans got their paychecks. The next morning, the bombs dropped on Tehran. And on Monday, when the market opened, your 401k bought the dip, whether you knew it or not. Here's what I think is actually going on. First, let's lay out what we know. Just the facts. You decide what to do with them. February 20th, 2026. Trump issues a 10-day deadline to Iran. Talks or else. February 26th, the third round of nuclear talks collapse in Geneva. The US leaves disappointed. Iran's foreign minister calls it a historic opportunity. Wasted opportunity. Neither side budges. February 27th, Friday. Stock markets close jittery. Oil price spikes more than 2% as tension builds. The S&P 500 ends the week in the red. That same Friday, it's payday. March 1st fell on a Sunday, which by standard payroll law means that semi-monthly wages are paid the preceding Friday, February 27th. Billions of dollars in 401k contributions are automatically withheld from American paychecks. And then, at Mar-a-Lago that Friday night, while a charity gala is happening on the other side of the curtain, America's top military brass are gathered around a map called Operation Epic Fury. The bombs drop at dawn on Saturday, February 28th. Now, is that a coincidence? Maybe. Stay with me. Now, here's the context you need. This is a president who has declared publicly on Truth Social that the Dow Jones will hit 100,000 by the end of his term. He uses the stock market as the primary scoreboard of his presidency. Not unemployment, not wages, the stock market. When markets tanked during his first term, tariff fights, he reversed course. Whenever markets wobbled, he called the Fed. He has been described repeatedly by his own advisors as a president who watches the ticker with obsessive frequency. Now, ask yourself, if you were a president who measures his legacy in Dow points, and you knew a military strike was coming that would shock stock markets, when would you do it? You'd do it right before the single largest, most predictable wave of buying in the entire financial calendar. End of month, semi-monthly payday. Hundreds of billions of dollars in automatic 401k contributions, settling into passive index funds in the first 2 trading days of March. Price insensitive, algorithm driven, unstoppable. It's the perfect shock absorber. And it arrives just on time, whether there's a war or not. You don't need to be a market manipulator. You just need to read the calendar. So let's talk about the vibe of that night, because the details are quite wild. Trump is at Mar-a-Lago, not the White House Situation Room, not the Pentagon. His private club in Palm Beach, Florida. On the other side of the curtain, from where rich donors are eating dinner. The makeshift war room, black curtains. A map on an easel. Multiple monitors, including, reportedly, one displaying live social media posts in real time. After the strikes begin, Trump goes to dinner on the patio. And then, this is documented, he attends a $1 million a head candlelit fundraiser for his own super PAC, MAGA Inc., held at the same property, while the bombs are still falling on Tehran. His press secretary calls the fundraiser more important than ever. Yeah, you have to wonder why. Now, I'm not saying he launched the war to help his fundraiser. That's up for you to decide. But I am saying this is a man who was watching social media on a monitor while overseeing strikes on a sovereign nation, who went to $1 million donor dinner the same night Khamenei was killed. This is not a man who compartmentalizes markets from military decisions. Now, here is where it gets really interesting, because the theory either lives or dies on Monday, March 2nd. Future Sunday night, they were down hard. The world just watched the war start. Oil spiked, cruise stocks, airline stocks, semiconductor stocks, all getting obliterated in the pre-market. Wall Street was expected to open down 1.5% to 2%. And then something extraordinary happened. The S&P opened sharply lower and closed flat, up 0.04% actually. Nasdaq finished positive, and the Dow clawed back from a 600-point loss. The mainstream media called it a buy the dip event. JP Morgan put out a note. It's a tactical buying opportunity. Analysts said investors showed remarkable resilience. But here's my question. Was it really resilience? Or was it March 1st? Semi-monthly payroll contributions, landing in Vanguard total market funds. Was it bi-weekly payday workers, also paid that Friday, having their 401k contributions auto-deployed into S&P 500 index funds on settlement day? Because those funds don't watch the news. They don't see the smoke over Tehran. The algorithm says buy, and it buys. The market didn't shrug off a war because investors are brave or resilient. The market shrugged off a war because 70 million Americans funded it, automatically, without consent, on payday. Here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. The Trump administration told Congress there was an imminent threat from Iran. That's the legal justification for strikes without a declaration of war. CNN and the Washington Post both reported that US officials with actual access to intelligence assessments said they saw no sign Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States. The Defense Intelligence Agency had assessed that Iran was years away from a missile that could reach American soil. So the stated reason for the timing, it doesn't hold up. Meanwhile, the financial reason, payday passive flows, 401k settlement windows, the most predictable wave of equity buying in the calendar, it lines up perfectly. Now, am I saying this was the reason? No. I'm saying the people who advise presidents on military timing are the same people who model market impact. That is not a conspiracy. That is standard national security economic analysis. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was literally dialed into the Situation Room that night. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, in the war room. Why does the economy guy need to be in the room when bombs are dropping? Think about that. I want to be clear about what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. I'm not saying Trump launched a war for the stock market. That would be insane, but still possible. But what I am saying, if you're a president who measures success in Dow points, who posts about the S&P 500 like a sports score, who has his treasury secretary in the war room, the line between military timing and market timing gets very, very blurry. The calendar data is real. The payroll cycle is real. And the Monday market recovery and Tuesday and Wednesday is also real. All I'm asking is this. Why did this happen the night after payday? Because nobody in the mainstream financial media is asking that question. And silence, in my experience, is its own kind of answer. Share this, because the one thing they can absorb without passive flows is information. Take care.